All right, NTB, man. So in my last video, I was talking to you about how these jails and prisons call themselves correctional facilities, and that's not really an accurate name because they really don't correct people. If you look at all the statistics, you'll see that there's not a lot of correcting going on in those facilities. And one of the dirty little secrets that no one really talks about is that oftentimes people go in those facilities because they're in precarious situations. It might be financial, it might be drug and alcohol, or it may be a touch of mental illness. Oftentimes those facilities make the situation worse. It doesn't make it better. And how a lot of times it makes it worse is the conditions that exist within those facilities. Those facilities are filled with drama, anxiety, hostility, violence. And if a person goes in there sometimes for a long time or even for a short time, when they emerge from those facilities, all of the problems that they went in with, they come out with those same problems because they never really got addressed while they was in there. And oftentimes the issues are exacerbated because of the horrible conditions that they had to live under and be detained under. And what people don't tell you is that oftentimes these people emerge from these facilities with PTSD. These people were traumatized. It doesn't take long to do it. Oftentimes some of these jails and prisons, a short-term stay will totally mess a person's mind up. And they'll never ever recover unless they get really, really good help, good treatment. And oftentimes they don't for a number of reasons. Anyway, that's what this next video is about. NTB, man. All right, no throwaway boy, man. I wanted to expound a little bit upon the last video, speaking about incarceration, jails, prisons, and how they are failing us as taxpayers. We're spending billions and billions of dollars on these so-called correctional facilities, and they're not really correcting anyone. In fact, the statistics show that most people who go into those correctional facilities, they come right back to those facilities within a very short time. So they're not fixed. So they're not really correcting people. And the proof is in the pudding. All the stats show this. And to expound a little bit further, some of the reasons where there's failures is that oftentimes people go into these correctional facilities and they go in there for a number of reasons, usually top three: financial issues, they need money; drug and alcohol, substance abuse issues; and the third would be mental illness of all kinds. And then, of course, there's a cohort of people who are falsely accused, falsely arrested, profiled, innocent, and convicted. But the main three are the ones that I listed. And when you look at for instance, the financial situation that caused people to lean into crime, you'll see that once they get arrested and they go through the quote-unquote correctional facility and they serve time, 5 years, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, they will serve that time and again, they'll be released. And the problem is, once they're in the facilities are not set up and designed to address the issues that got them incarcerated in the first place. They're not being addressed. And they're not developing skills while they're in there. They're not getting education while they're in there by and large. And so they're not developing their marketability to society. And so once they're released, that cohort of inmates, prisoners who were placed there, they don't have a good situation that they're returning to. In fact, the situation that they're returning to is worse. Why? Because if you look at it, before they went in, they didn't have money, but they may have a part-time job, low-paying job, but a part-time job nevertheless. They may have a place to stay, maybe not a great place to stay. They may have been with their mother, their father, their sister, their brother, girlfriend, boyfriend. Not a great situation, but they had a place to stay. Upon serving time and returning, oftentimes everything is worse. Their financial situation is worse. Why? Because now they have no job, oftentimes. And then trying to get a job oftentimes is very difficult because they have a criminal record. So the criminal record has now become a barrier to employment. Oftentimes they are older. They have no skills. They have a resume with a big gap in it, and everyone wants to know, where were you for 5 years? Where were you for 10 years? There's a big gap in your resume. It's like you weren't a part of society. Where were you for all these years? And what skills were you developing and sharpening? And the next thing is the housing situation often is precarious and sometimes very unstable, if not there at all, because the mother, father may not want them back, and or mother and father may have moved on. Mother and father may have died, particularly if it was a long sentence. The girlfriend, who they were living with before, she's moved on. The boyfriend, he's moved on. And so you have no job, you have no income, you can't pay rent. So your living situation is really, really unstable. And so the pressure just to survive day to day is tremendous. And oftentimes that's one of the reasons that these men and women lean right back into criminal activity, selling drugs, using drugs, or other scam activity, or any crimes that are financially related. The people who go in with drug and alcohol, sometimes their issues will get addressed inside, because some of the facilities do have drug and alcohol treatment programs, although they're not always the best, but they do have that. So that can be addressed. And then the last one is mental illness. And the people with mental illness, everyone knows the jails are not really best situated to address people with mental illness of all kind. A lot of times, and I'll make a whole video on this one so I can explain it to you, because it's too long to go into here. What New York did in particular, and other states around the country, is they shut the mental health facilities down because they're so expensive. They put the people who had mental illness out of those facilities again because they're too expensive, and they started using the jails to warehouse these people, the prisons to warehouse these people, because it's just less expensive than to run them through mental hospital, where many of them belong, because the mental hospitals are better suited to treat the mental needs of these people. Jails and prisons make mental illness oftentimes worse because they don't have the staffing, they don't have the expertise, and oftentimes these people end up in solitary confinement, which oftentimes exacerbates mental illness. It makes them worse. And then these people then are released oftentimes right from solitary confinement with mental illness right back to the street. And then the last thing I want to talk about, what a lot of people don't know, and this is one of the dirty little secrets of America's jails and prisons, is jails and prisons often make the people worse because of the conditions that exist inside the jails and the prisons. They're horrendous. They're horrible. They're not designed to keep a person in the best of mental condition. And so what happens is, because some of these, let's come back to Rikers Island, for example. Rikers Island is such a mess. They have gangs there. They have drugs there. They have rampant violence there. They have rampant corruption there. People who go into these facilities are subjected to sometimes the worst types of terroristic environments and aggressive, hostile, violent environments that it weighs on their minds. It makes you live in a constant state of fight or flight for months, weeks, years. And that's that constant state of fight or flight, the jumping, the beatings of other inmates. It's not a world that many people can honestly mentally adjust to. Another little dirty little secret is that it's not just the inmates that create this extremely, extremely hostile environment that a person has to live in 24 hours a day, all day, every day. It's like there's no turn-off switch. It's just constant state of fight or flight, no turn-off switch. Is that many of the guards are involved oftentimes in this creation of this environment. If they're not actively involved, they're negligent because they know what's going on, but they don't take the proper steps to alleviate it. And in some cases, the guards are actively participating in abusing inmates, creating hostile environments, creating flight or fight situation, trying to antagonize inmates, jumping on inmates, beating inmates, and or setting inmates up to get jumped and beat by other people. And so there's a hellhole, ladies and gentlemen, many of these jails and prisons or quote-unquote correctional facilities. And the dirty little secret is that oftentimes people emerge from those facilities with PTSD. They are traumatized. There's no way a man or a woman can live in that type of environment, that type of hostile condition, being jumped, threatened to be jumped, being attacked, threatened to be attacked, being slashed, being stabbed, being hit by guards, by inmates, being robbed, being extorted, or worse, and then come home, and oftentimes you can't even talk about it because the trauma was so it was just so intense that you can't even really get it out to your spouse, your friends. You can't even talk about it. These people oftentimes need real professional counseling to decompress after sometimes even short stays in these quote-unquote jails or correctional facilities, as we are apt to call them. And if you look at a person like Brittney Griner, for example, who's in a Russian detention facility, let me ask you a question. Would you be surprised if she were eventually released, and hopefully she is, but would you be surprised if she is eventually released that she has troubles readjusting back into society? Would you be surprised? Would you be surprised if she can't just jump right back into the swing of things? Just jump right back into her employment of playing basketball? Would you be shocked? Would you be shocked if she can't just automatically jump back into relationships with people, family, friends, even possibly her spouse? Would you be shocked? Would you be shocked if you found out upon her release that she was dibbling, hopefully not, and dabbling, hopefully not, in drugs or alcohol? Would you be shocked? Most people who know how these detention facilities around the world and here in America are set up and designed, and the experiences that people go through there, they wouldn't be shocked. In fact, it wouldn't be surprising at all. And so I'm very hopeful that Ms. Brittney Griner is released soon, and that her transition back into the real world, so to speak, is a smooth transition and everything is just fine. I hope there's no long-term mental, psychological, emotional impact of that stay, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Let's hope for the best. Anyway, NTB, man.